Guys, I am trying out a new hairstyle. What we saying? What we saying? I'm going for a classic look. I'm going for hello. I come from a long line of billions and billions of pounds. My great great granddad owned many an estate in his time, and it's been passed on to us, and we just don't know what we're going to do with the property. And I say this whilst, driving my classic Porsche and one can dream. No, but I mean, on the real, I'm trying this old side parting out, and partly because my hair's getting too long, and I just haven't been out to cut it. And I'm like, let me try the side parting. I don't know how it looks. I want to see. Anyway, so I didn't particularly get a question through. I mean, I have, but I've got questions through that I'm going to cover in future videos. But this one, I don't know. I just felt like I wanted to come on here and talk about it. She hasn't asked me a question, but the situation that she's bringing up, I've actually read and seen amongst so many people where the case didn't go their way, or there was no justice. The abuser died and they can't do anything about it, that type of thing. So it's a very short conversation. She just says, "Hi, I read your story. I feel like I should talk to you. I've had some tragic things happen and the silence is death." Now that it was the same for me. I know it was the same for my dad, and unfortunately led him to his death. And I know it's the same for many, many people who are still kind of trapped in the happenings of the past and the ties that it still has around them. And I know that feeling of death, like I know it like there's no tomorrow, and it's tough. It is. So if you can relate to that in any way, then hopefully this video will help in some way. And then we basically go a bit back and forth, but essentially what she says is that she got no justice. And because she got no justice, it lives within a dark place inside of her. And because she got no justice, it's just completely fucked up her life. And there are lots of people who go to the police and the police say, "Sorry, there's not enough evidence." And it destroys them. There are people that go to the police and there is evidence and it makes its way to court. They get to court, but the person doesn't get convicted. And the judge says no for whatever reason. And it crushes them. We have people who want to finally speak out, but the abuser is dead. And they can't get that closure. And it crushes them. And there's the first and obvious point of this, which is, of course, it's going to crush you. Of course, we want a conviction. Of course, we want the police to find the evidence because it's fucking there. Of course, we want people to say, "Yeah, I believe you." Of course, we want the abuser to be alive to then go through some type of punishment, whether it's through the police or whether it's just you confronting them. Of course, we want that. Okay, you have every right to want that. And there is closure there. Don't get me wrong, there is. The point that I'm trying to bring up now, and the conversation that I want to start is, okay, but what happens when that stuff doesn't go your way? Because at the end of the day, your abuser, living or dying, is completely outside your control. The police saying that there is or is not enough evidence is outside your control. The police believing you is outside your control. The judge saying you're guilty or you're not guilty is completely outside your control. There might be elements where you can do the best that you can and give the right evidence, say the right story, as if there's another story that you could tell, as in have the courage to actually share the details of your story to help the case. All those things are within your control. But when it comes to someone else's opinion and another human being, and we don't really know other human beings. Like, who knows? Fucking the police could be abusers. The bloody judge could be an abuser. Who knows? Fucking the world that we live in today. The point that I want to get to is all that shit is outside your control. And again, please, throughout this video, please do not think that I'm like, just get over it, because I'm not saying that. If the abuser's alive, if there can be a conviction, then you will get closure to some degree, which kind of goes into what I'm about to say. It does give you closure to some degree. But it's I think it was yesterday's video or the day before, some recent video, I said that there's this guy, Gary Vee. He's like an online marketer, influencer guy. And he always says that he loves the positive feedback that he gets from his audience. He goes, but he doesn't allow himself to kind of like soak it up. He doesn't allow himself to get carried away with it. Because if he gets carried away with the good shit, then he has to then get carried away by the bad shit, because you can't just take the good and not the bad. If you're open to the good, you're also open to the bad. You have to have a sort of like a barrier up to the good, because that means you're going to have a barrier up to the bad. And I can relate, because I do the same thing. I absolutely do the same thing. Like, whenever people leave negative comments on my social media, which is actually all the time, it's very, very common. It doesn't affect me, not even in the slightest. I just block. Like, you should see my block list. Tell you what, it's fucking long. And when I get positive stuff, so, oh, that's nice. It's nice to hear. But it's like 2 seconds after that comment is said, or I've read the testimonial, boom, it's gone. Back of mine is like done and dusted. It's in the past. Yeah, I've forgotten about. If I sit with it, you know, and it carries me forward and it motivates me to do the next thing, then the negative is going to demotivate me. Okay, I'm self-motivated. So the reason why I'm saying this is because I basically operate from what's within my control. So let's get back onto topic now. When it comes to yourself and you think something didn't go your way, whether it's a judge, whether it's a police, whether the abuser died, basically it didn't go your way when it comes to what you deem as how you're going to get closure. And so therefore it's just messed up your life and it's forced you to continue to live in dark. Now, the problem here is that because there is an element of there's an element of us relying on something that's outside our control, it kind of paralyzes us, and it doesn't really make us aware that, hey, we can do something about it ourselves. You know, how many movies have you watched where there was, well, it's usually in the film with like murders and stuff, where someone was murdered and the relative or the partner of that person that was murdered then goes on this quest of finding that other person, finding the murderer, finding the killer to kill them. And you see it so much where someone comes along and says, hey, you don't want to do it, man. You don't want to do it. It's not going to make you feel like how you want to feel. It will help a little bit, but it long term, it's not going to give you the closure that you need. Okay, killing your son's killer is not going to give you the closure that you need. You might think it will. You might think that the police saying, "Boom, we're going to put him or her in prison for the next 40 years." That's being more like the next 4 years or something, but we're going to put them in prison for the next 40 years. That's great. Trust me, it's great. But there will still be an element of, I thought it would feel good, and it does, but why don't I still feel moved on? Why am I still not happy? Why am I not feeling free? You know, and it's the same thing is now if they drop the case or whatever happens and it doesn't go your way and you don't have that closure, you have to, at a certain point, be like, right, it's time for me to take control over how I'm going to give myself closure, because now I know that all of that is within my control. Then that opens up a new conversation. Okay, well, cool. What do you need to do moving forward? Like, what's your next steps to get that closure, to start that healing journey? What are those steps? That's not really the point of this video. The point of the video is more so just a sort of different way of looking at it, more of a perspective change over, it's time to, because you owe it to yourself. Like, just think that if that case didn't go your way, if the judge didn't convict them, if the police dropped it because of a lack of evidence, if the abuser died, and you're still living in darkness because it didn't go the way that you had hoped, you didn't get that closure, they didn't get what they deserved. It's a key one that I hear. Okay, and I'm not saying they don't deserve it, they do, but because they didn't get XYZ happen to them because of XYZ reason, and then that keeps you living in pain and in silence and in darkness, they still have a control over you. They're still really, in a way, abusing you in a very distant sort of way. Like they're remnants that's been left behind. There's a quote that I heard once, which is, "It's not what a burglar takes from your home, is what they left behind." Right? And some people deal with what's been left behind for their whole lives. And it's a dreadful life to live. It's horrible. But once we can take control, I'm like, all right, cool. That happened. All right, that happened. I've owned that. I've accepted that. He's an arsehole. She's a prick. Vile human beings shouldn't be alive on this planet. Or they are. They shouldn't be alive on this planet. Dreadful things should happen to them. But they're dead. That's unfortunate. That's a quick way to go. All right. What do I need to do now? Or they're not dead, they're still alive, but okay, the police didn't find enough evidence, or they only got 2 years in prison, whatever it is. That shit that's outside your control. There's like, okay, well, it's time for me to now move on. It's time for me to move forward now. What can I do that's within my control to give myself that closure? And then you can start that journey moving forward. Then you can start to I've got some YouTube videos on this. You can join one of my communities that's down below in the YouTube channel about how can I now go on a path of self-improvement? How can I now start to shift identity from the person that I was, that was victimized, yes, that then was living with this victim mindset, which, yes, and that's warranted because of what happened. But it gets to a certain point where we need to shift out of that victim mindset and into one more sort of a survivor mindset. And what I say about, we go from victim to survivor to then warrior, where we're a warrior and we're taking leadership over our life. And sometimes, if that's a path that you want to take, you're taking leadership to lead other people so that they can see the light in their world of dark. But that is quite a long journey. It's not something that happened overnight. It's just one small change at a time that you make, and a compound effect takes over, and then boom, you're looking back and you're like, fuck. It's crazy what he done to me. It's crazy what she done to me. I hope that they had their time in prison, but it didn't pan out that way. And, and don't get me wrong, you can also say things like, I've started this initiative, or I'm volunteering for this charity to help protect people around him, or her. And you can still do things like charitable organization, volunteering type, social media branding type things to raise awareness, to help people who could be victims of that person because the police aren't doing anything about it. You could still do that, but it's coming from a different place. It's not coming from a place of needing closure. It's coming from a place of purpose. Two different places. One of them has a time span on it, right? And it's quite a short fuse. And the other one, purpose, lasts a lifetime. Okay? Can't burn out on purpose. All right? So I hope that helps. Hope that makes sense. The first step is acknowledging what happened, being okay with how you felt and how you are feeling now, and knowing that, hey, you are warranted to feel like you deserve closure, but bringing in this new sort of path of this new train of thought of being like, leading with curiosity, which I love, leading with curiosity everywhere at all times in life. What can I do moving forward to maybe give myself that closure? What can I start doing moving forward where I can start to take control of my life rather than the abuser feeling like, I feel like the abuser is still controlling my life? What can I start to do to break those shackles and move forward and start creating a life that I want to live and that I damn well fucking deserve to live? Again, it comes back to what's within your control and taking out ownership, because that is really how you live the life that you want to live. And it's also what makes you most powerful, because you're not relying on anyone. You know, you're not relying on anyone. So I hope that helps in some way. I just wanted to come on here and just share that. If you've got any questions, if you want me to do something specifically, then feel free, by the way, if you've got any questions for a YouTube video, you can always put those below the video as well. All right. So just to wrap this up, you deserve justice, yes. And if it comes from the form of police, trial, prison, some type of punishment, fantastic. Okay. But in addition to that, and if that doesn't happen, then completely this is trying to gain that from within yourself, because that's how you're truly going to get it. Okay? Cheers.